What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Dead Men Tell Tales. I am one of your hosts, Steve, as always, joined by.
The star of the attraction, the main guy, John. That's not true. Steve does all the mini-sodes, so he's like 60%.
The main giggity giggity.
But that's that. So
But yeah, hope you guys had a great week. Um, excuse me. I have been busting my arse on the mini-sodes. I've got one published as of right this moment, and I've got two of them recorded. Got to do a little bit of editing on them and get the videos ready to post them up. Been raining here. It hasn't really done much else of any fucking thing. I don't know about where you're at now in Tennessee.
they said it's the wettest 5 months in the last 50 years. It's been raining every day.
Sounds about right.
That's kind of why West Virginia almost just got washed away.
So I wasn't aware that we lived in the fucking Pacific Northwest, but apparently we do.
Apparently, Tornado Alley shifted into Middle Tennessee too, so it's like that's cool.
Jesus.
Yeah, there was like the first 2 weeks we were here, like every night there was tornadoes all across Tennessee. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Rethinking the move strategy.
No, I'm not.
You gotta move closer to like wintertime when it wasn't fucking season.
And have to have a snowcat to get up my driveway? No.
True.
All right, so I'm not 100% sure what your episode tonight is on, but mine, like I said, is going to be
the first. It's your episode. If you're doing it, it's your episode.
Damn white people. Anyway.
Fuck you, dickhead.
Well, mine is going to be a brief, like, roughly 20 minutes about Tennessee and the Civil War. Because I think that was pretty interesting. So, I'll start by saying that Tennessee is divided into 3 segments: West Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, and East Tennessee. That's why it was kind of like a divided state within like a divided nation. But so we'll keep this going. In the 1850s, Tennessee was doing pretty good. It was thriving. It had great farmland. In the west, rolling hills in the middle, and mountainous terrain all across the east. That's why you got the Smoky Mountains on the east side. The West Tennessee people suck. Anyway, leave a comment if you're in West Tennessee. I still think you suck. You got Memphis. Anyway, there was kind of like a micro ecosystem in like a larger agriculturally rich area, because like people claim that the Smoky Mountains are like the kidneys or the liver or whatever one purifies your blood of the United States, but that's not why we're here. Anyway, that rat bastard Abraham Lincoln, he was elected in 1860 in the southern states, and then they began succeeding. So that was fun. Why? Because it was deeply divided because of that bastards in West Tennessee. Anyway,
fucking rat bastard Abe Lincoln. That's who fucking did it. The rat fucking bastard.
Anyway, East Tennessee, it had a few plantations in the strong Unionist settlements, and they wanted to stay in the Union. West and Middle Tennessee were stronger ties to slavery and cotton economy, which leaned towards the Confederacy. The Confederacy. The good old days. I'm joking. It wasn't until after the Battle of Fort Sumter and Lincoln's call for troops that Tennessee made a decision.
We're getting fucking canceled.
Anyway, June 8th, 1861, Tennessee became the last state to secede from the Union, but it didn't go quietly. It caused a lot of commotion. Many East Tennesseans viewed the war as rich man's conflict. I've often said, and you've heard it, the War of Northern Aggression. They didn't own slaves. They didn't want to work. They didn't want to fight. They didn't want to preserve a system that didn't benefit them. Led by figures like Andrew Johnson, communist cocksucker unionist. Maybe we shouldn't have said all this stuff. This is what happens when you let me write. Give me a week to write my own
I
episodes.
say I gotta fucking start pre-reading all your shit and proofread and be like, no, this isn't gonna work. No, this isn't gonna work.
I got it in my notes. Anyway, 1861 Union sympathizers of Ginas in East Tennessee attempted to sabotage the Confederate railroads and communications. The bridges, these bridge burners, that's kind of what I called them, as they were met with harsh retaliation. Martial law was declared. Suspected Unionists were imprisoned, harassed, and even executed. Take that, bitch. Anyway, Tennessee wasn't just a battlefield, it was a battleground of loyalty. Then,
Yeah, you know what I love most about like the old days when you hear this shit and they're like they were tried and then executed. That's exactly what the fuck it was. They were tried and then executed. It wasn't
yeah,
a, oh,
same
you're
day.
tried and then you go sit in jail for 20 years. No, it was tried. Your fucking ass was hanging by noon. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Those are the good days. Anyway, uh, Tennessee played a key role with its rivers, railroads, strategic locations. Tennessee became the most fought over state after Virginia. Over 1,000 military engagements happened here. Yeah, Tennessee had the second most battles, and the second largest battle of the entire Civil War.
What
So what?
What's crazy about that is I'm a huge Civil War buff, and it didn't dawn on me until you just said that there was a fuck ton of battles in Tennessee. Like I went over and I always would like read the names of the battles, read all that, and I'm like, okay, but I never really paid attention where the hell it was at. Like it's the same like when it comes to Virginia and like the Maryland battles and shit like that. Like I know where they are, but it doesn't dawn on me. That's crazy. Anyway,
And
continue. Sorry.
remember, this is a historical podcast episode about the Civil War. Just because of the way I wrote stuff doesn't mean that you can make your own conclusions, but don't label me anything, you prick bastards. Anyway, the Battle of Fort.
Before we go, you keep going here, man. I cover that in like every single mini-sode. I'm like, before anybody says shit, John and I are not fucking professional historians. We do this for fun. If we fuck shit up, kindly let us know.
Oh, I didn't fuck anything up. I got this. War of Northern Aggression. Anyway, we're going to talk about Fort Donelson at the Battle of Fort Donelson. It was in February of 1862. So Fort Donelson is located on the Cumberland River in northwest Tennessee. It was a crucial, I spelled that wrong, crucial Confederate stronghold. It was captured by the Union under Ulysses S. Grant, and it was marked as a turn point just because he was a turncoat rat bastard. Not
No, he was a fat alcoholic. There's a difference there, goddamn it.
Anyway, but symbiotically, it opened the door to Nashville, the first Confederate state capital to fall. And weak, limp-wristed bastards. Anyway, this is where Grant earned the nickname of unconditional surrender. Grant, he refused any terms except a full surrender, and eventually he got it because he lit everything on fire. Anyway, so then you move into 1864 for the Battle of Nashville, and the Union troops under General George Thomas crushed, like annihilated 90% of the Confederate Army of Tennessee. It was one of the biggest victories for Union, and it essentially ended major Confederate resistance in the Western Theater. I tried to write this, like, give myself timelines to stick to. I'm about 3 minutes ahead of schedule. So here we go.
It never happens, dude.
I tried.
It doesn't matter what kind of fucking timeline skeleton you do out for your damn reading. It never sticks the way it's supposed to.
Well, I'm even trying to slow down like the reading stuff, but it is storming here, so I'm slightly worried about the weather taking out the interwebs. Anyway, or Iran taking out the interwebs. Tennessee, especially Middle and West Tennessee, were occupied by Union forces for much of the war. Cities like Nashville, that shithole Memphis, they were garnished early and became center for military logistics and hardship. Enslaved people, it doesn't just mean the black folks. There's a lot of Confederate white guys that got enslaved when they refused to turn. Enslaved people began fleeing the Union lines. Many joined the U.S. colored troops, serving bravely in battle. See, credit where credit's due. Others lived in contraband camps near the Union camps where conditions were often poor but offered the hope of freedom. Tennessee also had a complex guerrilla war with bushwhackers, raiders, militias, creating chaotic and violent landscapes, especially in contested rural areas.
Them fucking bushwhackers, they were nuts. Like, if anybody knows anything about the Civil War or is interested in the Civil War, Quantrill's Raiders. I mean, I know they weren't in Tennessee; they were in like Missouri and shit like that, Missouri and Kansas. But Quantrill's Raiders were fucking insane. They were nuts.
Yeah, they were pretty aggressive. I lost my spot. Anyway, all right, we'll talk about the women now. Running farms, they were acting as spies, nurses, and providers in the absence of their men in war times, and when obviously, and some of the men that didn't make it back, they became the head of household. Let's see. Tennessee was the first former Confederate state to be readmitted to the Union in July of 1866 because of the work from Governor William G. Brownlow, a fierce Unionist who pushed early Reconstruction and ratified the 14th Amendment. But by doing so, the Reconstruction of Tennessee was messy. Bitter divisions remained. The Ku Klux Klan was founded in Pulaski, Tennessee in 1865, which holds a dark legacy that haunts the state and the nation for decades. Nobody said slavery was right. All right, I don't like those guys in the white sheets. Anyway,
they're outdated.
Yeah, be a racist and wear your pineapple shirt, you proud boy fucks. Anyway, today Civil War monuments.
Shit out of this.
Yeah, don't get me sidetracked. Those Civil War monuments, battlefield parks, and reenactments dot Tennessee's landscape, but so do the scars in the form of long-standing racial tensions, economic disparities, spelled that right, fuck you, Steve, and political divides. Tennessee's Civil War history is not just about generals and battles. It's about the choices, hard, painful, and deeply personal choices made every day by people under extraordinary circumstances. It is the story of a fractured survival and ways of reconciliation. Again, just because I wrote this segment on the episode does not mean that I side with anybody, or you can pass your own judgment. I added that at the bottom because I realized that I got a little off track in some of those paragraphs. If you enjoy listening to some of the Tennessee tales, make sure you follow, subscribe, and let us know if you want to hear more. I do have a much longer episode. I'm trying to shorten down of the Battle of Shiloh Hill, but it was wicked, so I don't know. It might be like a 45-minute episode.
That's completely fine.
Well, that right there was supposed to be 20 minutes, and I finished 7 minutes early. Story of my life. Mediocre wienerins all day.
So this is where the second part of the episode comes in. So now it's going to be about 15 minutes of John and I bantering back and forth here on the Tennessee stuff. Because obviously, I know, John, you guys spend a lot. Before you moved down there, you guys spent a lot of time down there, right?
Probably 2 or 3 months out of the year, yeah.
Yeah. So like I know John knows Tennessee. I don't know Tennessee like that. So like this stuff's super interesting to me. And I mean, I knew Tennessee. Like I said, I knew Tennessee had a lot of battles in the Civil War. I didn't think they had that many. So like I'm fucking super anxious to hear about the rest of this stuff. I know for a fact Shiloh was one of the bloodiest battles and like gruesomest battles in the Civil War. I do know that. So I mean, not only when it comes to the Civil War, Tennessee in its own right is just an interesting fucking state. And I'm not saying interesting in the fact that, there might be people in the hills with arms growing out of their heads. That's a real thing. But interesting in the fact that there's a lot of history in Tennessee. It's crazy.
So I'll give you my. I made a list of out of all the battles that I did the research on. I made a list of five. Obviously, number one is the Battle of Shiloh Hill, which was only April 6th and April 7th of 1862. 23,000 people died in 2 days.
Yeah.
Let's see. The next one was Battle of Stone River. That one went on for 3 days, December 31st, January 2nd, 1862 to 1863. And I said 3 days because obviously the next day after that started was the New Year. It was in Murfreesboro. 24,000 people died combined. If you know anything about the Civil War, you'll know that a lot of the battles were between like 2 days and a week, like
Yeah.
the individual battles, not the war as a whole. Chattanooga was another huge one. It was only 2 days. In November of 1863, 12,000 people died. Battle of Franklin, which is the only reason it stuck out so much is because it was one of the only battles that I found was one day. November 30th, 1864. In one day, 8,500 people roughly died. And the reason that one sticks out a lot is because that's the day that the Confederate Army took a huge hit. Most of those deaths were Confederates. And then the Battle of Nashville, which we briefly just covered, was actually only 2 days and 6,600 people roughly died. Now the casualty count that I give you is rough, a very rough estimate from like multiple different articles that I found online because I don't think, like I said, the women became like caregivers and helpers and nurses and all that stuff. And me and my wife have hiked in remote parts of East Tennessee and came across I've got pictures of a couple of them, just one single grave with like a headstone, and it'll say something like, "Here lies such and such buried by Mary and Janice, a Civil War soldier." That's all it says. And I've got a couple pictures of them. That was just the one that sticks out to me. Um, and those are kind of scattered all over East Tennessee.
Insane. That's crazy. I mean, at the end of the day, like, so you compare the numbers that John just gave for those battles there in Tennessee. That is astounding. Like those are astronomical numbers. Just poof, gone. 2 days. It's like Thanos. The fucking Civil War was like Thanos, man. Just gone.
Well, you ready for it to be even more impressive, though? I am a firearms enthusiast myself, so I was curious. I was like, these guys were stacking bodies, 24,000 people in 2 days. I was like, what gun were they using to do this? And I'm actually gonna try to find one because I think it'd be pretty cool. It's a Springfield Model 1861 rifled musket. It was a 58 caliber black powder rifle.
Yeah, dude.
And then the second one was a Enfield 853, and then smoothbore muskets. And then I actually have a replica of the Colt Army Model 1860, but it's made by Picatinny. It's not an actual Colt. The actual Colt's are between 10 and 25 grand. The
Yeah,
Picatinny's 1,000.
I get
And
it.
it actually shoots. It's 44 caliber black powder, and on the front of the revolver, there's a ramrod that's like spring loaded. It's pretty sweet.
Nice. Yeah, it's like the smooth bore was more of the farmer's musket. Like that's what they normally had on their farms. That's what they used. Um, and then the Enfield was like the basic soldier rifle, and then obviously it stepped up from there. And I mean, and that's a lot of that's a lot of the reasons why there was a lot of raids on like armories and depots and stuff like that was because they needed upgraded weapons. Like you can only do so much damage with a smooth bore musket compared to a rifled barrel.
True. Unless you load it with the tines off of forks and shred somebody.
Yeah, unless you're blunderbussing somebody.
But so so what Steve just said about the armory raids and stuff, they were extremely common. You also have to remember that there was hundreds of thousands of people fighting, so there was massive food shortages. So they weren't just raiding armories; they were raiding farmers' fields, corn cribs. I mean, anything. Because the most common thing they could eat was cornbread, bacon, and like salted pork. That's really all they had. And then they had hardtack, which are, if you think of like hardtack, it's like if you take a cracker and leave it outside in the sun for like 5 days and it turns into like a little piece of concrete, that's pretty much what it is.
2 crackers and some peanut butter. That's probably and you let it outside. That's probably the more thing, because like, it wouldn't the peanut butter hardens, which makes it fucking brittle as shit and sharp. So, like, when you're biting it, it's stabbing you in the gums. It's annoying. Like, I remember in elementary school, we did, I think, the Battle of Gettysburg, and our teacher made us hardtack try, and oh my god, it's like the most tasteless thing ever. It's pretty much flour and water. That's pretty much what it is.
And then the last bit of because I wanted to make it, like I said, I tried to make it 20 minutes, so I just added random facts at the end. Uh, I made a list of, so roughly these are the combat deaths was 214,000. Deaths from disease was 415,000. Now you add them all together, and roughly 620 to 750,000 people died. Remember what I said? We run across random graves sometime, and then the three biggest like sicknesses, because it wasn't just them fighting each other. They also didn't have doctors in the field, medicine, any of that shit. They were fighting dysentery, typhoid fever, and pneumonia, malaria, measles, mumps, and smallpox. And the reason was poor hygiene, contaminated water, and inexperienced doctors. And if you know anything about medicine, they did not have antibiotics just yet.
Well, you gotta figure if you got cousin Job out there with a fucking knife, cutting your arm off because you got shot in the arm. I mean, let's be for real here. You get hit in the arm, and I mean like the forearm with a 58 caliber bullet. A that whole little piece of arm right there, if it's not blown the fuck off, it's at least shattered. So
Yeah.
you're gonna have cousin Job out there with the damn knife trying to cut what's left of your arm off. You're not gonna have anesthetic. The best you're probably gonna get is him hitting you in the head with a fucking rock or giving you a bottle of his homemade moonshine, whichever. That's your best bet on what you're getting to numb you as he cuts the rest of your arm off. And then on top of that, he ain't gonna have nothing to patch it with. Maybe a dirty coat that he was wearing. So you got to figure you're gonna get gangrene from that. After a while, like yeah, you're not surviving that. So it's one of those things where I mean, you can look at it at any of the battles in that time. People, if you were hit, that chances were you were losing whatever limb that it hit, and if you weren't close to an army hospital or a field hospital, chances are you were dying from that.
Oh, for sure.
Like
And so
that's
what?
I would say that's the craziest part about that those kinds of wars. Even like even the Revolutionary, that was crazy. But like the Civil War, there weren't medics. I mean, there were medics, but there weren't medics like there are now. It wasn't every platoon had a medic. Fuck no. It was like one medic for every fucking I don't know the hell? Brigade? Platoon?
Brigade. This is brigade.
Corps. That's what I'm looking for. It was like one medic per corps.
But so that's going to be about the end of this here episode.
Yeah, that is going to wrap it up for this one, guys. As always, thanks for listening to us ramble on for 25 minutes here. We greatly appreciate it. Hope you did learn something from it. If you did, let us know. If you didn't, let us know. Either way, engage with us. We appreciate it. We will engage back. Look for more mini-sodes on the YouTube coming up, as well as some more history-packed episodes this season, because we got them coming. So, with that, I'm good. John, you got anything else, man?
No, we're all good, bud.
All right. With that, everybody, we'll catch you next week. Be easy. Peace.
Later, everybody.